Hey everyone, we now have a murder investigation in Genoa City. Phyllis and Nick are sex buddies, and Sharon and Ray have an almost kiss. Stay tuned for this week's Restless Wrap.
You're tuned in to AFTERBUZZ TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, I'm Rachel Goodman, here for another crazy week of Restless Wrap, and man has it been crazy, not just last week, but for the last couple of weeks, they've really been ramping up the storylines, especially with Phyllis and Nick, the whole JT storyline, everything going on, kind of with Nick and Phyllis and Sharon and Ray, and then we have some Kyle and Lola, not really drama, but just everything, many different directions they're going in right now with the show, with the different storylines. So let's go ahead and get started. But before I do, let me give a shout out to everyone we have in the live chat right now. We have Nikisha Jones, Susan Russo, Amy Caroluzzo, Doolaman, Sam Pibone, and Rainy J, Matthew Kennedy, and Hubby Joe. So you're all my amazing co-hosts. As we go through, I will love to read your comments and we'll give you a shout out. Just want to give a shout out to Amy Caroluzzo again. I went around asking everyone's favorite moments in the show. She said Tessa Mariah, and Sam Pabone said Tessa and Mariah moving in together. We have Todd Beaton in the chat. So let's go ahead and just touch on, we have a lot of Tessa and Mariah, supporters in the chat. So let's just touch on them first, because we have a lot of things that so far with Tessa and Mariah, we've seen a lot of happy moments with them, which is great because we all know the history of how long it took them to get together in the first place. So they're finally together. They've had this kind of happy relationship. Mariah, we see her in Crimson Lights even just this week saying, she's usually not that couple who's, all lovey-dovey and she's usually the one that's very hands-off, or not hands-off per se, but just not openly loving and openly doing the cutesy couple things that usually make Mariah kind of sick, is what she was basically saying. So we kind of see Tessa and Mariah doing that, being the lovey-dovey couple that Mariah would never have seen herself being in that kind of relationship before. Eventually Mariah, it kind of seemed random, but I love how they did this. Mariah obviously had something on her mind. Tessa comes up in Crimson Lights and is like, come on, I can read your mind. I can read that something is wrong. Tell me what's going on. So Mariah asked Tessa to move in with her, and it was kind of a really quick thing. It was like, okay, Mariah asked Tessa, and then the next day after she makes sure that Tessa's okay, they decide they're going to stay in Tessa's studio, which to me, I don't know if anyone else read it this way, because I still don't 100% trust Tessa, as we can tell from the bag of cash she has in her apartment that she's not telling Mariah how or why she got this. Part of me was thinking, oh, is Tessa, and maybe this is just the pessimistic side of me, part of me was like, wait, is Tessa asking, okay with Mariah living with her only because it's going to save her money, because Mariah's going to pay half of the rent for the studio? Because Mariah was like, all right, let's go look for a place together, 1 or 2 bedroom. And Tessa's like, no, let's just stay in my studio. So Mariah, who grabs all her stuff, and Tessa keeps making jokes like, yeah, I don't know if it's going to fit. And we see this super tiny studio apartment. Yeah, no wonder it's not going to fit. They really should have just gone out and gotten their, a bigger place for 2 people. That studio, definitely not fit for 2 adults who have all their stuff with them. Not that Mariah had that much, because it really just looked like a couple bags. And even then, Tessa was like, I don't know if it's going to fit. But yeah, we end up seeing that Tessa's got some cash with her. And by some cash, I mean loads of $100 bills. And I don't know, maybe it's just the money she was going to use to pay back those people, but it seemed like so much money that it's what is Tessa involved with? So I still don't trust her. Let's check in with the chat and see what's going on here. Nita Smooches says, Tessa can't be trusted. Nikisha Jones, me neither, Rachel. I totally don't trust Tessa. Amy Caroluzzo, they're really trying to make it seem that it's Tessa, the blackmailer. Matthew Kennedy, I think Tessa is playing Mariah. Yeah, so I kind of feel that way too. Tessa just seems like the ultimate con artist. I don't want it to be like that. Like, I would love for it to be, something deeper or different, or maybe just some kind of crazy thing that Tessa's involved with and she doesn't want to get Mariah into it because it would just be a very, it could put her in danger. But here's the thing. The moment Tessa agreed to let Mariah live with her, now Mariah's in it. And what Tessa's not realizing, so if she really has this secret double life, which is kind of what I'm sensing from this, the fact that she would be okay with Mariah living with her, she should have just told her everything that was going on. Mariah's gonna find out. And that apartment is so small that, Mariah, even if she's not trying to dig through anything, she's gonna end up finding that cash. So where's Tessa gonna put it? In her car? Does she, I'm trying to remember, I'm assuming she has a car, that they don't live, right next to Crimson Lights, that she needs a car to drive places. And that's how she was getting back and forth between Genoa City and where she was going, where her sister was. Todd Beaton, why would Tessa give money to her sister? Yeah, and that's an option. She could be giving her sister the money, but something just tells me, like, it kind of goes back to the storyline they were doing, the sex storyline with Todd. I think his name was, it's been a while, but I think his name was Todd. We haven't seen him ever, he's done, out of the picture, gone, dead. I think that was that. I think they ended up shooting him and he died. But during the sex storyline, the sex victim, the sex ring storyline they had going on, it kind of seemed like Tessa might have been involved with him, and that it just didn't feel like she was she was a victim in all this. Not that she was, doing what her sister was doing, and not that what Crystal was doing was wrong, because obviously Crystal was kind of forced into all of this too. But it just seemed like, maybe Tessa's kind of more involved with this than we know. So let's see, we have a couple more comments. Todd Beaton, Sam first. Sam Pabon says, Tessa is bad news for Mariah. I hope Mariah finds a new girlfriend to be nice to her and not use her for money and not break her heart. Todd Beaton says, I like Mariah and Tessa together. Doolaman, Tessa went and dug JT up after they buried him and is hiding him. Oh, that is a really interesting point. That could, because, okay, you know what? I think I agree with you 100%, Doolaman, because, and I didn't even think of that. The money that they requested that, the 4 women paid the blackmailer, that could be exactly the money that Tessa has, and she's trying to hide it because, of course, she wouldn't want anyone to, especially Mariah, to know how she got to see the money. But then that begs the question. So Tessa now has the money. Why doesn't she just pay off the people that have been hounding her for money? And then that way, she'd be good to go. I thought that, I don't remember exactly how much she owed them, but it looked like, just from eyeballing it, it looked like she should be good. And I think they paid, the 4 women paid about $100,000 to that blackmailer. Could have been more. So it just isn't adding up to me that she would still kind of be acting like, oh, I'm poor Tessa, I'm in this hard financial situation. No, Tessa, I don't think you really are, unless that money isn't yours and you're holding it for someone else. So, but, speaking of, obviously you guys all love soaps, and you may watch the other soaps on the AfterBuzz, the recap shows we do on AfterBuzz as well. So, just want to let you know that from drama, reality TV, sci-fi, and more, there's no network that works harder to serve television fans. But we need your help. We're asking that you please subscribe to one or more of our YouTube channels. By subscribing to our channel, YouTube will suggest content that's tailor-made for you and help AfterBuzz continue to grow. And if you're worried about those pesky notifications, don't be, because they are completely optional. You can uncheck that and not get bombarded by notifications. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button now for this channel, and check out our other AfterBuzz TV channels as well. Let us know that you did so. Let me know, and I will give you a shout out on air on our next show. So for now, thank you for being the best fans and for helping us be the ESPN of TV talk. Speaking of talk, now is a good time to announce that we are going to take live calls. So if you are listening right now, it is November 11th at 5:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The number to call in is 424-354-8302. Again, if you are listening live right now, the number to dial in if you want to talk is 424-354-8302. We have a couple other comments in here too before we move on to our next segment. Susan Russo says, maybe Tessa was sitting in the park alone in the dark and saw the four bury JT. That's very possible. After all, we know that Mariah was not with her that night. She was kind of, a little drunk. Todd Beaton, no way Tessa could not have told the four women. Maybe. You never know, though, because Tessa's pretty good. I mean, she had to survive, so I would imagine she'd be quite good at not telling them. Hubby Joe, I think Tessa was the silent partner in charge of the sex ring, and Zach, sorry, not Todd, I got his name wrong. Zach was the face. See, Zach was so bad that I got his name wrong. That's what we're going with. Doolaman, you gotta suspend belief at Todd Beaton, LOL. Matthew Kennedy, just don't think Tessa is all that regarding digging up a grave. Well, okay, so you never know. I don't know, because we really haven't seen her in action. Tessa's really good at playing the victim, and that's what I'm going with. Not that I don't want Tessa and Mariah together. I do. It's just that we've seen her do some shady things in the past, or not say certain things that she should have said, and then she'll try and cover it up, or stealing lyrics from someone else's personal journal. I just think she's pretty capable of doing certain things and lying or not discussing it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out she is involved and that she did dig it up. You never know. Okay, so we touched on Mariah and Tessa. Let's go ahead and get into the JT storyline, and then from there we'll go into the little offshoots, because I feel like this week there's a lot with JT, but there's a lot that kind of in the side stories that are kind of, dumping into the JT storyline. So we'll start with JT and everything happening with, how it goes from, the four women just doing charity and not really being, no one knows anything about JT's body being buried, going from that to now suddenly there is a murder investigation in Genoa City. So it kind of all starts with the watch. We saw that from the previews, not this week, obviously. We saw it from 2 weeks ago when they were showing the previews, that this watch that says "I love Mac" was left at the at Chancellor Park, where Phyllis, Nikki, Sharon, Victoria, where they had all buried JT's body. We know the body's not there anymore because they tried to dig it up in their, McDonald's masks. So we know the body's not there, but what we do know also is that this watch had been left there in the dirt somewhere. And we don't know if it's because of them, of the women re-digging up the grave, or if the watch had just been there from when someone else went and dug it up, or if the watch was just always there from when they first brought his body to the scene. So in any case, Arturo is actually the one that finds it, because we know that he was doing work there on the water pipes, or the water structures, I should say. He finds it, and it kind of is it almost, I don't mean to be rude or mean to Arturo, but the way that he was holding onto this watch, it was like watching a little kid who had found a new shiny toy and didn't want to let it go to anyone. And he's talking to Abby about it, and he's just I guess I'm going to turn it in, because obviously they don't know what I Love Mac, or, Love Mac, so obviously it was from Mac. Arturo doesn't know who Mac is. Abby doesn't know who Mac is. They would never have known whose watch this was. But Arturo just has it. He just keeps commenting about how nice it is, and just it kind of is well, part of it seemed like he was just gonna keep it, but then it also seemed like, all right, maybe he's gonna turn it in. What's he gonna do with this? Ray shows up and sees him with this watch, and basically Ray ends up. So Arturo didn't even want to deal with Ray because Ray and him were still fighting, but Abby was trying to have them make amends. So she had Ray come and sit down, and in the process, Ray sees this watch. Ray ends up taking the watch for, because of where Arturo found it. just to, investigate. And, I guess Ray had kind of heard the name Mac before, so it rang a bell. So yeah, Ray takes his watch, and it just felt like, Arturo was basically like, oh, okay, my watch. And it was kind of sad watching this adult guy, like, but it was my watch. Well, even though not really his watch, but that's just kind of the vibe I got from him. Hubby Joe says, it does not make sense about a broken water pipe. They dug up the site and there was no body and also no broken pipe or water. Poor writing! That's very true. And they did mention not even just the pipes. They said something about the structure. I don't know if they meant pipes by that. Yeah, just kind of messy writing. I like how they kind of tied it together though. So in any case, as this, Ray gets this watch, Victoria starts begging Sharon to do more snooping around the office. Sharon doesn't want to do that, and I completely agree with Sharon, and I kind of was like, Victoria, you do realize that, you're basically, this is going to put Sharon under, this is going to make Sharon look awful, and it's going to indicate that she may have done something if he catches her, and put the brunt of it maybe on her, potentially, if she's like snooping around. And we already know as the viewer that originally Ray wanted Sharon to come on because he was watching her, because he associated her with the four, because he knew that of all four of them, Sharon was going to be the one to, crack and basically give the details. At least that was what his logic was when he brought her there to work for him. Which is kind of, and let's just kind of mention it now, since it isn't that, it was a pretty big part of this week, but obviously there's kind of something going on between Sharon and Ray, even though neither one of them are acting on it. When eventually, toward the end of the week, Ray and Sharon, more Ray, kind of leaned in to almost kiss her, and then that was that. And then later on, back at, this was in his apartment. And then later on, at the precinct, he actually tells her in a different world, there would have been something, I would have wanted to see where things could go between the two of us. So I'm wondering, all along, we know that Ray, what he's wanted to do with Sharon is bring her in to get her to open up, to get her walls to drop. So part of me is thinking, well, maybe Ray doesn't, he could have feelings for her, but I feel like maybe the bigger reason why he's doing all of this and trying to get to be in this friendly place with her is specifically so that he can get information from her, and that was all there is to it, and that really he is just kind of using her and taking advantage. He doesn't seem like that kind of guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's where they go, or it's kind of a combination, and that's why he's like, oh, I have feelings for her, but I can't have feelings for her because this is the woman that it can't really actually be happening that I care about her. So that's kind of where we're going with them right now. I don't want to touch on this too much yet because I have a whole section on Billy and Sharon when we get to Nick and Phyllis. But let me just say now that I'd rather see Sharon with Billy. But if everyone listening in the chat, what are your thoughts on this, especially after this week and we see Billy and Sharon talking, and then we see everything with Sharon and Ray? Obviously, there's chemistry there, but I hope nothing happens between them, and that we just kind of see it go away. Let's see. We have Todd Beaton. No, Sharon and Ray. Sharon and Billy would be better together again. Yeah, Matt Kennedy says Sharon and Ray are a hot couple. Matt says boo on Billy. So we have kind of, some people, one person agrees with me, one person doesn't. But we'll get to Doolaman. They tried it before. I'm assuming they mean Billy and Sharon. I was guessing they kind of had tried it before, especially based on their conversation in Crimson Lights. Simone, I think it started off with Ray wanting information, but like most soaps, the cop has to fall for the witness. Doolaman, Sharon and Ray, Yawn City. Susan Russo, I'd rather see Sharon and Billy. Okay, so I think the overall sense of getting it from the chat is that whether they want Sharon and Billy together, Sharon and Ray is kind of, I don't know. I just don't see them. first of all, I mean, it's too soon for Sharon, and she even said this, it's too soon for her to be getting involved with anyone else, and I really think she means that, unlike Nick and Phyllis, and yeah, I know, we've been talking about them a lot. Let's finish the JT storyline. We're almost kind of through everything. Then we're going to get to Nick, Phyllis, Sharon, and Billy, because I feel like that was some interesting material this week. Okay, so we see Mac came back in, just real briefly. Ray interviews Mac, kind of finds out about the watch, like, for a fact, and Ray specifically asks her about the watch. Victoria, we find this out through Victoria, because Victoria, asks Mac what Ray wanted. He was there to ID the watch. And then Mac admits, Ray told me the watch was a significant lead. And then as Mac is leaving, Abby shows up and tells Victoria that Arturo found the watch at Chancellor Park. So now Victoria and, all the women know what's going on, that's why the watch is a significant lead, because of where it was found. They're in the loop too. Eventually Ray goes to Chancellor Park, after he finds this watch. He declares that he's looking for something else. We don't really know what, but he ends up declaring it a crime scene. He announces this on air right after he and Sharon almost kiss. And then we end up, so basically the whole Chancellor Park is marked off as a crime scene investigation. And the four women, we see them meeting, and obviously at this point, because of everything else going on, especially between with Sharon and Phyllis, there's a lot of tension there between these people now, between the four women. But they end up meeting, and they're like, okay, well, what else could it be that Ray found? Because you couldn't just say, oh, it's a murder scene based off a watch, because JT could have just been there and left his watch, right? So they're thinking, okay, well, maybe Ray found something else. Maybe his team found something else. I just want to point out, and this almost made it to the law moment, when Chancellor Park, when Ray gets up on, and actually announces that there's now a crime scene investigation happening, or a murder investigation, they show, I don't want to say Brady Bunch like clip, but it kind of was, except there were only three different screens. But they show, I think it was Nikki and Victoria were together, and then Sharon was in a separate room, and then we had Phyllis, I think it's Bo, working as CEO. And just the look on their faces, it was hilarious, to be honest. Like, I don't think it was supposed to be hilarious. To me, it was funny when they, announced this. It's now a crime scene, and here we are, the four women in, three different places. And yeah, that's how they decide to do that. So, let's go ahead and work our way into everything going on with Phyllis and Nick. But before we do that, let's talk about Jabot, which will lead us right there. Todd Beaton, Sharon and Billy slept together in 2009. Then Sharon got pregnant with Faith. They did not know who the father was. It could be Jack, Nick, or Billy. Interesting. So I'm assuming, based on the fact that Nick now calls Faith his daughter, that they figured it out. But that's an interesting turn of events there. So, okay, Jabot this week. We picked up right back where we left off with Phyllis as CEO. We started off this week with a meeting between Phyllis, Billy, and Kyle, which was very different from the meeting that she had with, if you remember, 2 weeks ago, she had the meeting with Carrie and Lauren, and they were just, discussing the future of Jabot, and everyone was agreeing, and it seemed like everyone was on, even if they weren't on the same exact page, it seemed like these three women really were going to be a great team and work together. Not so much when we pick up with Phyllis, Billy, and Kyle. It's pretty obvious that Philly is no longer a thing. Well, at least not Phyllis and Billy. They obviously, when we pick up with the three of them, it's pretty clear Phyllis doesn't want to deal with them. She doesn't want to be, like, not that she doesn't, she's just very stern with both of them. Especially Billy, of course, especially him, but even Kyle, she was very stern with him. And just in general, like, as we go through this week, everyone keeps commenting, even Summer at one point, that Phyllis just seems to be very, like stern and against anyone who is actually an Abbott, including Jack. We'll get there. She has a conversation with him. So we can tell that, you know, she wants Kyle and Billy to work around the clock. And she just, especially Kyle, she's like, oh, you can't leave. Like, but Kyle's like, well, I have plans with my girlfriend. No, Phyllis is like, you cancel those plans, you stay. And Kyle's like, nope, see ya, bye, I'll come in first thing in the morning. Which is good for him that he did. He should not have just, she shouldn't have expected him to work all night, last minute like that. So eventually, though, Summer steps in and basically says, you know, you should give Kyle another chance to kind of prove himself, whether he's going to, you know, be good to you or not, like give, you know, good to the company and someone you can trust, give him a chance. So Summer, as much as Kyle makes it clear that he does not want to deal with her, Summer still goes to Phyllis and says, hey, like, Kyle really didn't do anything. Just give him a chance. Otherwise, you're going to have a really intelligent guy with nothing to do. And he might find something to do, and you know, kind of implying that if you don't keep Kyle busy and like, you know, give him an important role, he's gonna maybe not necessarily sabotage something, but you know, make trouble. So Phyllis luckily listened. I was kind of surprised, but you know, obviously she was open to it. She listened and she ends up calling Kyle and gives him a project. We don't quite know what it is yet. But that was kind of good. The more we see Kyle, and we found out a little bit more about him too, that he really had never had a paying job until he came to Jabot. Well, he had the paying job with Newman, but it was kind of like he had the paying job with Newman and then came to Jabot, and that was it. So it's kind of like now I'm seeing Kyle as this, you know, kid sort of fresh out of college with not that much experience, and the experience he's getting is everything now at Jabot. And seeing him that way, it's like really seeing this kid who just has a lot of learning and growing to do. And not to say that he hasn't, because we've seen him grow since he's come back to Genoa City, but it's just interesting, you know, kind of to have that, like a different perspective on it. Okay, so this is kind of where we get into, this is kind of a sidetrack here, but we see Billy. He's, first of all, Phyllis and Billy, they keep having these altercations. They can't work together. It's very obvious. Phyllis even says, like, one day Billy comes in, and I guess they were going to do something for work, and they couldn't, this is right before she ends up sleeping with Nick. They just couldn't do it. It just wasn't working. So this is the first time we see Billy go into Crimson Lights, and he just happens to run into Sharon, and they talk to each other. And it was just, from that moment when I saw Billy and Sharon talking, I was like, oh, you know what? Like, first of all, Sharon, between the three of them, I'm going to say the three of them, between, you know, or out of the four of them, out of Sharon, Phyllis, Nick, and Billy, right now, and from what I've seen and know of Sharon, she seems to be the most level-headed. Not that Nick isn't, but he's done some things that have been kind of like, why would you do that? Sharon, though, as far as I've seen her, I know in the past she has not done these very level-headed things, but as long as I have been watching and seen Sharon, she seems like the calmest and the most level-headed character between the four of them. And so to see her, like, talking to Billy, and, you know, just being, like, calm and rational, and they have this, like, civilized adult conversation, and it's not like there's no, like, hidden, like, sexual agenda. It's just Sharon and Billy, like, misery loves company, you know, just because they happen to be, like, they were both kind of, like, you know, screwed over by, you know, screwed over by the same two people, basically. So it's interesting to see them talking, and I just liked what they had to say to each other. It seemed like it was very therapeutic. A couple of the things that they said. So Sharon, when she's kind of like, she's trying to talk to Billy and just get him to, I guess just give him some advice, sort of, not really, more just talking. The things that fell away from you are the things that were creating problems. So now you're in a better place, Sharon says. But then Billy says, that's what they say about dead people. And I thought that was hilarious. Didn't make it into the law moment, but still hilarious. And then Billy basically says that, he doesn't understand why she's dealing with Phyllis at all. And he just seems very, like, understanding and very kind to her. And I think that, even better than Ray, Billy just seems like a good person for her to speak with right now. And I think vice versa. I think that Sharon's a great person for Billy to talk to. So I would actually like to see something happening between them. And, obviously, Billy did some really crappy things. He slept with Summer just to get back at Phyllis, and that doesn't sit right with me ever, and will never sit right with me. But, maybe Billy and Sharon, at this point in their lives, at this age, maybe they are good for each other, and it's the right time for them to eventually grow into a relationship together. So then we get to Phyllis and Nick. Basically, Phyllis, it looks like she's going to call Billy, but then she doesn't. She ends up calling Nick. She goes to Dark Horse, and Phyllis, I've kind of realized with her, she did this with Billy too. She has a way of, like, talking to men and making them, like, finding out what their traits are and then talking to them and, like, complimenting them on it in a way that, like, makes the person feel like she's, like, raising their esteem, which is great, like, nothing wrong with it, but it almost feels like Phyllis has a kind of, like, she almost has, like, an agenda of trying to win over that person, so it doesn't seem as, like, not that it's fake, but it just seems like a little bit like she is trying to almost manipulate, and, like, it's kind of, and I don't want to say, manipulate might not be the right word, it might be a little strong, but, like, she's trying to, like, almost play a game. And just the way that she's talking to him, like, she was, like, definitely, stroking his ego, telling him that, he needs someone, let's see what the exact words were. Basically, that Nick is the kind of guy, he takes what he wants. This is what Phyllis is saying to him. And that all this, like, little speech that she has, it goes on for, a little bit. And then Nick jumps up from the table and starts making out with Phyllis, which, he stops it, says that their lives imploded last time they did this, blah, blah, blah. And then, so we think, okay, it's going to stop for now. Phyllis walks away. She's in the elevator. Nick rushes out to her, picks her up in his arms, and then walks back, and they end up sleeping together. And then the next day when they wake up, Phyllis doesn't even care if anyone sees her in the office. She's, like, all for it. She ends up leaving her badge there, which Jack ends up finding. And that's how Billy finds out, because Jack finds the badge, brings it back, or, gives it to Nick. But Jack still goes to the office to Jabot, and when he's there, he ends up, like, basically telling Phyllis he kind of knows. And it didn't seem like Jack, he's the kind of guy, he won't, like, try to openly tell you how he feels normally. He'll say, oh, it's fine, it's fine. Obviously, he's upset. Phyllis could tell. She could read him to know. And Phyllis uses it as an opportunity to tell Billy that she slept with Phyllis the night before, because as Phyllis and Jack are talking, Billy comes in, and Phyllis is like, oh, well, Jack, you're going to tell Billy anyway. So, like, just very directly, she says to Billy, oh, because Billy's like, why are you upset, Jack? And Phyllis goes, well, Jack, I slept with Nick last night, and Jack doesn't approve. And obviously, Phyllis wanted Billy to know. Like, obviously, that just made her day. Not that that was the only reason she did it, but it was clear that that was part of the agenda. And that's why she was, so happy and so excited to give that jab to Billy. We have a couple of comments in here. So, Hubby Joe, it does not make sense that Phyllis and Lauren work for both companies. Todd Beaton, Summer is a grown woman, knew what she was doing. Yeah, that's true, but the thing is that Billy, there are ways to get back at, like, he should have just broken it off with Phyllis and been done with her. He didn't need to go sleep with Summer. And yeah, she was a grown woman, but she's still not, like, she's not, he took advantage. He knew she had feelings for him, and he took advantage. That's all there is. And to sleep with someone's daughter after you were dating their mother, that's just all kinds of like, whoa. So yeah, no, I blame Billy for that. I don't blame Summer. It was just a really, obviously Summer shouldn't have done it. But not to say that she's completely in the clear, because she did make the choice. It wasn't like it was not consensual, because it was, but it was still wrong for him to take advantage like that. Susan Russo, did anyone else see the way Nick was looking at Phyllis in his office? Yeah, like, and when Nick and Phyllis were together in the office right before they slept, like, kind of when she was giving the speech and then right before they ended up making out, the music they played, it wasn't like sometimes they play like that, like, oh, it's the couple and they're gonna have sex. They play that music sometimes. This music wasn't like that. This music was more like if someone was going to be conniving or like doing something wrong. The music just kind of gave off that vibe like, oh, someone is doing something wrong here or something bad is about to happen. That is the music that was kind of the undertone of this conversation that Nick and Phyllis were having. So it just seems like it's too fast for Nick, too fast for Phyllis. Yeah, obviously. But that's not stopping them. So Nikisha Jones about Phyllis, she's always been like that. And yeah, now I'm really seeing it now that she's not in a relationship with Billy. And before, maybe a month or so ago, I remember saying, Phyllis seemed like she was just trying to almost walking on eggshells with Billy. Now I kind of have a better sense of her. It's not like she's walking on eggshells. It's more like she just it's almost like she's trying to stroke the ego of the person she's with. Like, that's almost kind of what it is, but not in a supportive way, more like in almost like a control kind of way. So that just seems like the kind of person she is. Okay, so let's just, rush ahead here a little bit with the time that we have left. So we had everything with Phyllis and Nick. They slept together. Billy finds out. Then we get another conversation with Billy and Sharon. This time, Billy ends up admitting, and I was like, thank you, Billy, for telling her, because she needed to know. Not that she wants anything to do with Nick anymore, but she deserved to know. So I'm glad that, Sharon was gonna find out anyway. I mean, even if Billy didn't tell her, she was gonna run into them at Crimson Lights and probably guess what was going on, because it was kind of is obvious. But yeah, Billy goes to Crimson Lights again. He has a second conversation with Sharon. This time, so first Billy tells her about Nick and Phyllis sleeping together. That was the first thing. But they had another interesting conversation. Sharon says, I don't care what happens between Nick and Phyllis. Does it sting? Sure. But I have no claim on him. But then Billy says, well, you're giving Nick excuses. You honestly deserve a whole lot better. The end of the conversation, Billy says, you have my number if you ever need to howl at the moon. And Sharon goes, I sure do. So, I know we've all seen the preview. We know what we've seen, that they might be going to, well, not might, that they're going to a party together next week. That's what they showed. So no spoilers. So I'm curious, if this is just, for Nick and Phyllis, they might actually have, what they think are these feelings, but then again, it's not the feelings Nick and Phyllis share, I think, is more just a sex thing, honestly. But Billy and Sharon, I don't even think it's that. And to be honest, Billy and Sharon's more refreshing, especially Sharon. She did absolutely nothing wrong in this situation. Billy, we can say, yeah, he retaliated by sleeping with Summer, which leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But obviously, Phyllis is the one who slept with Nick first. Not that Summer shouldn't have been involved at all, but obviously Phyllis is the one who, they were on a break, but still, yeah, you don't just go and sleep with someone else like that. Todd Beaton, Nick and Phyllis, and he's giving a throw up emoji. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that either, but I think we're gonna have to deal with them for a while. That's the sense I'm getting. So then, after this conversation with Billy, Nick and Phyllis happen to run into each other at Crimson Lights. Okay, fine, I believe that. But why would you stay? This is where Sharon works. leave her alone. Like, okay, if I were either one of these people, I ran into that, like, if I was Nick or Phyllis and they ran into each other, they should have had the decency to either sit apart or say, okay, let's go to another coffee shop. You can't tell me that Crimson Lights is the only coffee shop in Genoa City. I mean, it seems that way, but you can't tell me they couldn't go somewhere else, go to the club, go anywhere, but don't Sharon. And they probably, I mean, they kind of knew Sharon was going to come in, so they shouldn't, out of respect for her, they should have just gone away. Of course, Sharon comes in, she sees them together, she knows that they've slept together at this point, and she yells at them for being there. And really, that's, I mean, obviously, you know, she did cause a bit of a scene, but that seems characteristic of her. And it's not like she doesn't have a right, considering these are the people that really hurt her, especially Nick, for them to be in there. And Nick tries to say it was an accident. Okay, great, it was an accident. So you ran into each other. Out of respect for Sharon, the woman that, okay, this is the beef I have with Nick. This is the woman that he said he was going to keep fighting for. And 2 weeks later, or like 3 weeks later, oh, okay, I'm going to go sleep with Phyllis now. What? I mean, if Nick really loved Sharon the way that he was saying and like professing for her, he would never be able, especially not Phyllis, but like it would take him much longer to move on to someone else than this. This is ridiculous. Like, this really makes me think badly of Nick, that he was the one in the wrong. He was the one changing. He was the one, and like, I love how Phyllis threw in there, oh, well, Sharon thinks you're changing. Well, you met her in high school. Of course you'd have to be different. If you were the same, she'd call you immature. No, that's not what Sharon was saying. Sharon just didn't like how, Nick was showing all these things, like he was hiding things from her. He was acting like Victor. He was moving into a home without even showing her the home, bringing her there. He bought a home without even bringing Sharon there. And that was one of the bigger reasons Sharon couldn't do this with Nick anymore, is because he was changing. And, Nick should have, like, obviously he can do what he wants, but to me, his actions are saying that he's not taking real responsibility of what he did, and he doesn't get how he was changing in the first place. So, on that note, let's go ahead and get to our law moment. I had two. The first one was with Abby and Arturo. When Abby says Arturo's kind of playing with the watch before Ray comes and takes it, and Abby says, the owner of that watch is going to be dead before you return it. And it was just hilarious, because obviously, as far as we know, JT is dead. So yeah, that was interesting choice of writing there. And then the other law moment I had was Nick grabbing Phyllis in the elevator, kind of when they're rushing in, and obviously he rushes in, grabs her. So dramatic, but it was hilarious. Let's check in with the chat. Let's see. Todd Beaton says, Nick and Phyllis are worse. They made Summer. We all pay for that. Matthew Kennedy, Nick's like his daddy, 100% Victor. And then War Hero 99 says, is JT alive? That's the question. And I guess the last couple of minutes we have here, let's go ahead and get into predictions really fast. So
and now, your AFTERBUZZ TV predictions.
Okay, some of this is also my wishful thinking and a prediction that I hope happens. But first, is JT alive? I think it's one of two things. I think he very much could be alive somehow. Or, I mean, obviously the actor came back to play the cameo of JT, even though it really wasn't him. It was a prosthetic mask. So we have that. Or it could be someone like Tessa, either, got someone to dig him up or saw them doing it and dug him up themselves. Doolaman is JT is definitely alive. Okay, well there's someone, else thinking he's alive. I think he's alive. That's my prediction. I also think that we're going to see more of Phyllis and Nick together. I also really, and this is my hopeful, wishful thinking part, I want Billy and Sharon to get together. Part of it is because I think that they actually, they're both hurting, and they're two people who can understand each other, because they're literally in like almost the same situation, because it's like the same square of, people. So yeah, I think that they should get together, and I hope they get together. We saw in the preview that they were at least going to an event together. So, and then everything with Ray, I hope that, I hope that it doesn't really continue with him and Sharon, if things are even continuing. But as far as I see with Ray, my prediction is I think he's gonna figure out that that they were involved. I don't know if anyone's gonna go to jail. I think when it comes out, it's gonna come out exactly what happened, and that maybe they won't have to serve time because it was self-defense, which is why they should have gone to the police to begin with. So, on that note, I'm Rachel Goodman. And you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Rach Goodman. You can also go over to Facebook. We have a Facebook page at Restless Raps. If you go over, like, and follow, I always post the link to the show there. And if you leave comments, I will read it live on air. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. Until next time.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.